you are responsible for the movie being John Malkovich ever being made.
True. A lot of people will misunderstand me and they'll DM me, "Are you the whore whisperer?" And I go, "Shh," and that thing played on everything. World Series, like 5 times on every episode of Friends, you know, the Super Bowl. I think rarely is it a number.
No, I think that's the right type of manifestation. I think everybody is getting it wrong.
I've always considered myself the guy that's this close, shirtless, on an ambient. And the Dalai Lama goes, "Hello." And Bill Clinton goes, "How you doing, bud?" And I go, and I didn't know what to say. I'm just like in shock. And I'm just like, "Your Holiness, Mr. President."
Thank you for being with us, Scott.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So this morning when I was thinking how to introduce you, I was very excited because you're one of those people that has the craziest collection of life stories. I've actually never met anybody with such a huge collection of life stories and them being true, which is, you know, like people make things up. But you, Adam Levine, slept on your couch. You broke bread with the Queen of Netherlands. You literally met Dalai Lama while naked in bed.
True.
And if that's not enough, you are responsible for the movie being John Malkovich ever being made.
True.
And there are plenty more. And now you're also extremely successful on TikTok. You became like a sugar coach.
Among other things, but yes.
Among other, well, yeah, I mean, let's not forget you're an extremely successful photographer and many other things, but it's just this new crazy thing that you're doing. Like, what's that about?
I think everything is rooted in trauma in one way or another. So I think, you know, tragedy plus time equals comedy. I think I'm an empathetic person. I care about people. How the whole sugar coach thing started is I am a seeking spirit. So when someone does something or knows something that I don't know, I want to know everything about it. And I think people are inclined to tell me everything because, I don't know, I think energetically I'm the kind of person that I'm with. People realize that I'm without judgment, and it's because I'm without judgment. So
I agree.
So you can tell me everything. So when people were doing seeking arrangements and whatever, escorting, OnlyFans, whatever they're doing, everyone was telling me everything. And I'm like, how do you do that? How much money do you make? What works, what doesn't work? And then I started seeing other women trying to do it and failing. And I was like, no, you're doing this all wrong. I heard from so-and-so. And then it wasn't supposed to be educational at first. It was supposed to be comedy. And I started doing TikTok because I didn't know anyone on TikTok. My friends' children were going, you know, with your stories, you should go on TikTok. I don't dance. I'm not 13 years old. I don't lip sync songs. Why would I go on TikTok? And she says, no. There, you know, Scott, there are older people there. There's people that do all kinds of things on TikTok. Just give it a try. So I went in without any self-consciousness because I don't know anyone there, so I thought. So I did that sugar tips video, and I went to sleep, and I woke up the next day, and it had like 75,000 views, which is far more than I've ever gotten in Instagram, far more attention than I've ever gotten for any commercial music video I've directed, any photograph I've taken.
Isn't that crazy, right?
Yeah, because TikTok is not social media, it's discovery media, so it's merit-based, it's not popularity-based. So, you know, I did that one, and I was just like, I'll do another one. 100,000. Did another one, 200,000 views. Did another one, 500,000 views. And then I go to Europe, and I walk into my hotel in Lake Como, where you're going to be staying at, and there's 2 20-something girls in the lobby, and one of them goes, and it was my friend's wedding, and I walk in, and these girls go, "Oh my God, are you the whore whisperer?" And I go, "Shh." "Who are you?" And they're like, "We're the groom's nieces." And I'm like, "You cannot tell anybody about the whore whisperer."
By the way, for context, this hotel is the like upscale, expensive, like, you know.
It's one of the.
So I can imagine how old
it's
that
one of the
looks.
fanciest hotels in the world. Like Winston Churchill used to stay there. Like it is, yeah. It is
and they're
one of the.
Screaming like in the middle.
They're calling me the whore whisperer, and I'm at this fancy wedding that I don't even belong at. It's just like it's all Fortune 100 CEOs and royals and me. So I'm like, "You cannot tell anybody about this." And they're like, "We love you. We watched all your videos in the room." And I'm like, "You cannot tell anybody about this till this wedding is over." And they're like, okay. And then I show up in Milan after the wedding, and I'm just walking through a piazza in the morning going to get a coffee, and there's this kind of cute, kind of chubby pink couple from Cornwall, England, and they're like, "You're the sugar coach, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, yes." And I'm like, who are you guys? And they're telling me that they're on their honeymoon. I'll go, you guys are on your honeymoon? And they're like, yeah. I go, wait right here. And I ran into my hotel and I grabbed a bottle of champagne that was like in my room in Lake Como, because I'm not going to drink a bottle of champagne by myself, and there's events all the time, and I'm not going to schlep a bottle of champagne back to LA, so I go, wait here. I ran into my hotel room, I go, I want to give you guys a wedding present, and I gave them a magnum of Dom Perignon, and they're like, why are you doing this? And I'm like, because I like, because you could tell by this couple in their whole life, they're probably never going to be able to buy a bottle of champagne like this.
That's awesome.
And they're like, what do you want for this? And I'm like, a group hug, and we all just,
that's so cool.
So yeah, it's been a wild ride with the TikTok thing.
You know, it's funny because you said that you kind of started this, I mean, like almost like as a funny, like a comedy thing. And we can talk about it with like as a joke or with a straight face. But the funny thing is that those tips, they sound legit. Meaning like you are giving financial advice.
Yeah.
Like what you had on TikTok for shopping advice was genius.
Sugar tips, shopping. Some men don't like to be so cash transactional and they prefer to buy gifts, which is fine as long as you follow these simple principles. Okay, from here on out, you only like 2 brands of purses. Chanel, Hermes, that's it. I don't make the rules. Why? Those are the 2 brands that I know of that do not depreciate in value. And no Prada, no Gucci, no Louis Vuitton, no Valentino. And if anybody tries to buy you a Coach bag or a Michael Kors bag, you should probably file a restraining order against them. Moving on, watches. You want men's, sport, luxury watches. Here are the brands. Rolex, Patek Philippe, Audemars Piguet, Vacheron Constantin. Why men's watches? Again, women's watches depreciate. They're also kind of out of style. Finally, cars. I don't care if the guy's buying you a Kia or a Bentley. No leases, ever. This is a classic scam celebrities and other rich guys love to pull on girls. They'll get them a G-Wagon or a Range Rover in their name, then use the girl for a few months, then send somebody to go pick up the car. Get the car titled in your name or no deal.
You know how to make money, one-on-one.
Not as well as you do.
No. That's
yeah.
absolutely awesome. What are the top 5?
Sugar tips 1 is over $1 million. Number 2 is royals, about a member of the royal family that I met just by pure chance. And then ended up spending the entire afternoon with, and I cannot identify who it is by name because that would be indiscreet, but it was a very funny story. What is number 3? It's the one, the golden cock, the one about the hedge fund manager with the horse sperm and the porn star and whatnot, yeah.
People can watch it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Scott Nathan photo on TikTok.
So not only are you doing the TikToks, but you're also actually coaching those girls, right?
Some, yeah.
So what are the most common thing they come to you for?
Strategy, which sites to be on, how to negotiate, how to not get hustled.
Meaning,
we men, and it's not just all, not just men, but, we're animals. We need to be trained. Like a puppy, if you get a puppy, they do love you, but they will look in your eyes and pee on your rug until you put your boot in their ass.
Right.
So we do need to be trained. So, you need to sort of, manage your expectations and say what you want, what you will accept, what you won't. And I tell everyone just, don't lose hope. We all have to kiss a few frogs in our life before we find our prince.
But everybody have a chance, or there are like certain specifications that you have to be a certain beauty standard, or?
I don't think so. I think Henry Ford was right that there is an ass for every seat. Everyone has a type. Some people are completely one-dimensionally looks-driven. I've never been like that. Everybody likes a pretty girl, but after 3 dates, if they're not making you laugh and you're not having fun and you don't find each other interesting, looks are only going to get you so far.
You know what's funny? I was yesterday. I was kind of thinking about our meeting and watched a couple of TikToks of other people giving advice, and it's all girls, by the way. I've never seen a guy doing this, which is awesome what you're doing, because you're so relatable. Like it's and you're not part of this whole game. there's a lot of legitimacy in what she's saying.
And I'm not in it too, because
You
a lot of people will misunderstand me and they'll DM me and they'll be like, I'm gonna need like $3,000 a month. Do you wanna be my sugar daddy? I'm like, I got nothing. I've never, no.
That's what I mean. You're kind of like outside of the game.
You're just an observer.
And
I know guys that do it and I know girls that do it. So
you mean being sugar babies or sugar
daddies, yeah.
Sugar daddies
yeah,
as
so
well.
everyone asks me about it. People want different things. You know, a lot of women and men are strictly transactional. And, you know, there's a very little distinction between escorting and this. Whereas a lot of men and women are on these sites that really want a husband or a boyfriend.
You know, it's funny because I actually, one of the tips, one of the girls was, giving, she's like, you have to differentiate. It's not an escort. And I was asking myself, I mean, no judgment, but I was asking myself, what are the actual differences? I'm sure there are. But I would love to know, like, what's so different between being a sugar baby and, you know, more, as you're saying, like more transactional. You know,
where is the line? What is the difference between, you know, my women friends who are huge models and playmates who marry little short unattractive lawyers and then live behind gates in Beverly Hills, and a sugar situation? It's all a transaction. Those guys are gonna get a woman they could have never gotten if they didn't have all that money.
True.
And these girls are going, I think it's anthropological. I think it goes back to the earliest of civilization. I think the feminine instinct is to nest and the male instinct is to hunt. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, and I'm without judgment. If I were a woman, I would want to feel safe. I would want to feel nurtured. I would want to feel taken care of.
I agree with you.
So I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, and I don't think there's any nobility in dating, you know, someone who can't take care of you just because you like them. I think it's childish, if I'm honest.
No, it's true. I agree with you. First, absolutely no judgment, because I mean everybody's situation is different. I mean, I'm for safety. So that's where I draw the line,
Yeah.
you know, like I don't want anybody to be in a situation that's dangerous.
For sure.
But otherwise, yeah, like, you know, how far do you want to take it? Because you're absolutely right. And being a woman, yes, you do want to feel secure. Yes, you do want to feel like, because love is expressed in different ways, but you know, if someone is taking care of you, that's also an expression of love.
Absolutely.
And you do want all those things. I don't like when people shame others, but at the same time, like, what do you think about, you know, those girls being like, yay, it's so much fun, like everybody go do this, but it's really not for everybody.
It's definitely not for everyone any more than, you know, I've had girls that started dipping their toes in the OnlyFans thing, and they're like, should I do adult, you know, do porn?
Yeah.
And I was like, listen, if you even have to ask, don't
Then
do
you
it.
shouldn't,
Don't do it. The only people who should really that are cut out for porn are people who are nymphomaniacs. If you're doing it just for the money, it's not going to end well. It's not going to end well. And I've seen women that have done it for 20 years and they're totally at ease with it and they own houses and all these things. And I've seen women that just did it for the money. And you know how that business goes. You do one, and for the rest of your life, you're a porn person.
Yeah.
So you have to be, it's not a decision to be made in a cavalier sort of way.
In terms of the tips, can you give us 3 golden tips, the most important thing anybody should know if they want to be a sugar baby?
Have a goal. Know what you want. Manage your expectations. And above all else, safety. You know, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to vet people. And if a guy on one of these sites doesn't want to identify who he is, don't go out with him. Like, I'm not saying you need a copy of his driver's license necessarily, but if you can't do a background check, is it really worth risking your life for $1,000? I don't know how many that is. But
no, that's all valid.
And articulate what it is that you want. Like, if you know, there are all these terms that I've been learning in the sugar world, like P4P, which is pay for play, which just means escorting.
Yeah.
Like, if a girl just like doesn't want to do that, articulate, I don't do pay for play. I'm looking for a boyfriend. I'm looking for a relationship.
So, but escort is not always a sexual relationship. You know what I mean? Because sometimes
I think it's thinly veiled because escort agencies are licensed. And they are legal.
Yeah.
And what happens behind closed doors, I would say, and I'm not an expert,
What do you mean you're not an expert?
I would say I mean, who is? But
You are the
I
expert.
would say the vast majority of times that the word escort is brought up, it is
Sex.
it is sex. You know, it's not like massage where the vast majority are legitimate and some of them aren't. You know.
But in terms of sugar situations, what's the percentage? Relationships versus escorting.
I can only base it on my control group, on the people that I've spoken to, but I've found it to be 75-25 and transactional.
A 75 transactional, 25 relationships?
Yeah, driven.
Yeah. So it's still pretty much in...
Yeah, but I also know a lot of women that will go on these sugar dates where they'll get, I'll just throw out an X, you know, it varies depending on the girl, but it'll be like $300 to go meet for dinner. And then they can see how they vibe and see if they want to take it beyond there.
What, 300? That's...
Just to go to the dinner.
Okay, and that's like what in market? That's like fair price? Like what's...
I don't think there's such a thing. You know, that's going to vary on your station in life, the city you live in, all of those things. Like in that Horror Whisperer video, that girl was a big model, a 10 out of 10, and she would not go to lunch for under $1,000. And usually asked to go shopping also.
Yeah.
I don't think most girls can get $1,000 to go to lunch, but she was, you know, a 10. And you talk to people in ancillary and tertiary markets around the country. Like I've had girls DM me that are in like Alabama, and they're like, oh yeah, this guy takes me out 3 times a week for dinner and he pays me $75. And I'm like, you cool with that? And she's like, yeah, it's $75. I'm getting free food. And I'm like, cool. And she's fine
But just
with that.
dinner.
Yeah. You know, so they'll all go out. And then there's this other site, and they're owned by the same company. The same company that owns Seeking also owns another site called whatsyourprice.com or WIP, W-Y-P. And what that is it's almost like an auction where you set your price and this is your price to go out on a first meeting, whether it's lunch or dinner or a trip, and it's sort of pre-negotiated or men can sort of bid on you. You know, just for the initial meetup, and then I guess you can negotiate whatever it is that you want there.
Feminism out of the way.
Look, whatever works, you know, like I said, as long as you're not hurting anyone, I don't care what you do.
I know. No.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, you know, we're kind of like working and fighting. I mean, by we, I mean society, so much with like all the sort of like taking the woman, you know, like kind of like objectifying the woman, and then you have all those sites and all those situations where everybody is happy, and that's what both parties want to do.
And these women are no one's making them do it. They're doing it because they want to do it.
Is it like with porn where a lot of them just don't understand what they're getting themselves into, and they actually end up getting hurt and kind of like broken?
Well,
or it's lighter.
And that's part of the reason I do some of the things I do, and that's to try to just give people wisdom and to give them, you know, enough information to make their own choices. I mean, look, through no one's fault in our lives, we all get hurt. We all hurt people, intentionally or unintentionally. That's part of life. Perfection is unattainable. But, you know, I look at other cultures, and we're still kind of a puritanical culture here. Like, I watched an interview on YouTube last night with this woman who's did you see it's headlines everywhere, the woman with 2 vaginas?
No.
Okay, it was on Heather McDonald's podcast yesterday and on a bunch of other things. There's this woman who is married and she lives in Australia, and I didn't even know this, but...
I mean, that's like a true story?
It's a true story.
Okay.
She doesn't just have 2 vaginas, she has 2 entire reproductive systems. She could get pregnant from 2 different men at the same time.
Like, that's like from birth?
Yes, from birth. It's 1 in 2,000 people have this.
That many?
Yes.
I've never heard of anyone.
Me either. And the guy interviewing her on the news was just like, what's
1 in 2,000 can have it?
Yeah, it doesn't.
That's like...
Seems like it would be rarer than that, right? And she's Australian. She's like, it's like a double barrel shotgun. They're like side by side. And this is just obviously an exaggerated version of it, but the woman with 2 vaginas, she does adult videos. And
she has to. I mean, honestly, right?
Well, she's married. Well, let me finish. So she has 2 vaginas. One's for her husband. One is for escorting. And she says both sides feel totally different. And the guy was just like, well, how do you control that? And she goes, well, I can just get myself at an angle. So if it's work if it's for like escorting or porn, I just know to get them in that side. You know, and
it's
and
one
she's
of those
happily
things
married.
I'm listening to you, and I still distrust that's actually.
Go look it up. It's on the same episode of Juicy Scoop, Heather McDonald's podcast that I was on. They talk about it in the beginning, but there's a lot of news stories about this woman too, because it's a very popular topical subject. But my point is in Australia, I didn't know this, but it's an actual license to be a sex worker. It's totally accepted.
Right.
They're licensed escorts. They pay their taxes. And it's not this shameful thing. I mean, you know.
I think that's the argument, that, those people will be protected, they'll be paying taxes, it's much better to make it legal.
Amsterdam's always been this way, and they obviously were the first people to do marijuana and mushrooms and all that stuff, and they don't really seem to have any problems there. Yeah. And I'm not this super ultra libertarian either, but again, who's getting hurt?
Switching gears,
Yeah.
so I just wanted to come back to the wedding at Lake Como that you were at.
Okay.
Because as I said,
I can't say whose it is.
No, you don't have to. But can you say who was well, I mean, I already said it in the intro. Can we talk about the royal that you met there?
Okay, so you've known me a long time. I'm a vocal, gregarious person. I'll talk to everybody. I treat everybody exactly the same. And I don't really, I want to get to know people. I rarely ask people what they do or things like that. I just want to get to know them. And I go up to the bar and I had a drink. I was going to get another one, loosening up a little bit, and I see this older woman. And I said, I've never complimented anyone's jewelry before, but that is the most spectacularly beautiful necklace I've ever seen in my life. And very modestly, she said, oh, thank you, it's my birthstone. And I'm like, oh, that was cool. And it was just this avalanche of perfect emeralds. And I go, where are you guys from? And they were like, oh, Holland. I go, oh, no way, my connection was through Amsterdam Airport. And she goes, when did you get in? And I said, 2 days ago. And she goes, were you on that Dreamliner that gets in at 9:45 a.m.? And I was like, how does she know the routes? And I go, yeah. And then I'm just like, okay, that was a trip. So then I walk across the room, and my friend grabs me, and she goes, what were you talking to those two about? And I was just like, oh, just, flights and stuff. How does she know all the KLM routes? And she goes, you don't know who they are? I go, no. They're like, that's the king and queen of the Netherlands. I go, oh, KLM, Royal Dutch. I didn't even know the Dutch had a royal family.
That's true, Royal Dutch. Yeah, KLM.
Yeah, I didn't. Did you know they had a king and a queen?
I did not.
I didn't. You're
That's
European.
Funny, but I didn't know that it's Royal Dutch Airlines.
Yeah.
And I didn't connect the two.
I didn't either, and
I know Sweden has, and like Greece, and
I know
England, of course.
Yeah.
Speaking of.
Yeah.
You've also met a royal from the British royal family, right?
A few, yeah, over the years, in different times.
How does it happen to you? How do you end up in those situations where you meet all those people? I
don't know. It kind of makes me believe in the divine, that I feel like I attract it. Like I feel like the universe keeps screaming at me that my job is this is my purpose, is to collect stories and be a vessel for them.
No, absolutely, because the way you tell stories is so entertaining.
Yeah, it's half chance and half intentional. So there are a lot of situations that I know are going to end terribly when they begin. And most smart, intelligent people would run the other way. And I'm just like, let me see how this is going to turn out.
That's gonna be a good
it's not
story.
enough to know that the train's going to go off the cliff, that I need to watch it go off the cliff and burn in the canyon until the fire goes out.
You're also someone who kind of changed a lot of professions, right? You grew up in Chicago, right?
Grew up in Chicago.
And you started in music.
In music, yeah. I worked for a management company in Chicago, and I was a concert promoter and talent buyer at nightclubs. And then I went to work for a music publishing company, part of Warner Brothers, Warner Chappell Music, where I worked with songwriters and artists.
What brought you to LA?
I was tired of winter.
Legit.
And I really felt like I did everything I could have possibly done in Chicago, in music. There was I'm grateful to be from sort of the golden age of Chicago music. So the time that I was working in it was when the world finally paid attention to Chicago. And it was Smashing Pumpkins and Urge Overkill and Liz Phair and Material Issue and all these great artists coming out of Chicago, Wilco. So I thought the next logical step, and I was tired of winter, I was not going to New York, was to come here and continue working in the music business. And it was not so easy to get a job. You know, I was trying for a long time, and I struggled for a long time. And
then, what kind of job were you?
I wanted an A&R job. I wanted to move from publishing to recording.
What was difficult? Like, why was it hard?
Everybody wants that job, number one. And then all the people who I thought were my friends weren't answering the phone, and I was just like, yeah, LA is very different from Chicago
like
that. Like when
right?
they need a favor, I'm all over it. I help everybody. And then I'm like, wait, do you remember me? Can you call me back?
Wait, who are you?
Yeah, totally. And then I finally did get a job briefly at Atlantic Records. And then I don't even know. I was fired like a few weeks later and no one told me why. I think it was because Napster had just hit and everyone was getting laid off. And it was before iTunes, before Steve Jobs figured out iTunes. And no one knew how to make money with music anymore. And the whole thing was just upended. But the internet was brand new. So I thought, you know, I'm going to need to figure out a way to make some money here. This music thing is not panning out.
You were very successful in like building websites, right?
Yeah. Me and my friend Parker, he was an art director in advertising at Leo Burnett, and he was a screenwriter who had a few movies made. But he had written the Super Mario Brothers movie, not the one from way back when, which did not get. It was a good script, but not a great movie. It got bad reviews, and that was kind of. He kind of gave up after that because it was such a, So I said, you're a great artist. You're great with computers. You're great at coding. I'm good at talking to people. I'll bet you I can convince movie studios and television companies that all of their properties are going to need websites. And he said, have a go, dude. So I did. And we started doing websites for Disney and Sony Pictures and Universal Studios and fashion brands. And at opposite ends of the spectrum, I did one of the largest television Christian ministries in America and Jenna Jameson's website, which was the biggest adult site in the world, in the same year.
That's great.
So we did that.
Did you put it on your website, like when you advertised the clients that you had? Were they back like next to each other?
Those two I did much later because it was just I actually had to start a separate entity for the adult one because I didn't want to have to make the women designers that worked for us look at adult content all day.
You were somehow, how did that happen? You became an actor for a minute, like commercial actor. How did the commercial acting happen?
Dumb luck. So I'm not an extrovert.
Which is everything with you, it seems.
Yeah,
like just luck.
It's like Forrest Gump. And it's all the things that I never care about or want nothing to do with are the things that I manage to manifest. I'm a reverse manifester.
No,
all the things I really want, they never come.
No, I think that's the right type of manifestation. I think everybody is getting it wrong. You have to let go before something can come to you. I swear to God. That's why, because everybody say, and me included, like anything that you want, once you let go, you're like, okay, I don't care anymore. It just comes. You're like, couldn't it come 5 minutes before when I really wanted it?
I know. I wish I knew how to control my emotions that well. But anyway, I was playing golf with a friend of mine one day who was another photographer, a big photographer, and I was just kind of in the beginning of my career, and we had just come from golf, and we're in golf clothes. And he says, do you want to go to a party at 5th and Sunset Studios? And I said, sure. That was just one of the big photo studios from back in those days. So we walk in, and I was going through a period where I just thought it would be funny to start dressing like a golfer from the 1970s. So I was wearing these like plaid stovepipe pants and like
with your ginger hair out.
Yeah, and like a hot pink polo shirt with the big collar. I was just doing it to be a wise ass. And we walk into this party, and this woman comes up to me, and she's like, "You are like geek chic," and I was like, "Thanks." And she's like, who represents you? And I'm like, I don't have an agent. She goes, I want to represent you. I said, oh, cool, you represent photographers? She said, no, I represent actors. I said, listen, lady, I will never, ever, ever be someone with a headshot. I'm not an actor. She went
40 commercials later?
No, so then I see her like a week later, and she's like, have you changed your mind? And I'm like, oh my God, this woman again. And then she came up to me a third time, another week later, and I happened to be standing there with a friend of mine who knew her. And I'm like, you know this crazy woman? And he goes, yeah. I'm not an actor. And he said, just do it. You can make a ton of money and you can get health insurance. And I'm like, wait. Did you just say health insurance? And he goes, yeah. I go, okay. So I'm like, I have to get headshots? She says, yeah, you have to get headshots. So I went over to my friend's photo studio. He was doing a celebrity shoot for a magazine cover. I got some headshots done. I went on my first audition where it was for Toyota, I think. And you had to be wearing these like Lakers warm-up suits like the players wear. And the guy in the room goes, okay, the reveal is you're going to take your breakaway track pants and rip them off, and you're going to be wearing a tiny red Speedo bathing suit underneath. And I was like, I'm out. And he goes, what do you mean you're out? I go, you're not videotaping me wearing a red Speedo bathing. This was just in an audition, not a shoot. So I just left. And I called the lady, and I was just like, look, I love the fact that you believe in me, and it's so nice of you, but I really don't think I'm cut out with this. And she says, honey, before you quit, just promise me you'll go out on a few more auditions. So I go on to my second audition. It was for Dell Computers, and I book it. Get a call back, get a second call back, book it. Did not have one line in it, but had a close-up of me at a computer, clicking a mouse. And I made $65,000, $85,000. I can't even remember. Golden age of commercials. Money fell from the sky.
Yeah.
I'd check my mailbox every day, and there'd be 5 checks in there. And I just didn't care. I was just booking and booking and booking and booking. And I think none of that was due to my acting skill. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that if you're doing a group, a bunch of people in an office, you need a rainbow. So you need the black guy, you need the Asian lady, you need the redhead. It was just like, it's just like, I fit the suit.
But I kind of think it's also because you sort of didn't really care,
It's absolutely
because that energy, like.
Yeah, because if I showed up in a waiting room and there's like 100 actors in there, I'm like, I'm not waiting here all day, I'm out of here. And they're like, all right, Scott, you can come in next.
What's your most fun and most cringe commercial?
My most fun and my most cringe are the same one. So that was a commercial.
Okay, give us the most fun and cringe, and let's say the most paid commercial.
I did one for Hyundai.
That's fun, cringe, or a lot of money? Which one is this?
Fun, but
Okay.
but also it just goes to show like there's no proportion between hard work and success. So I was playing the best man at a wedding. And I think it was Errol Morris was directing it. It was some big director was directing it. And I showed up, and I'd done enough commercials at this point to know that, like, don't even bother trying to come camera ready. You're sitting around for hours and hours and hours before it's your turn. So I didn't shave. My hair is a freaking disaster. And I was just like, I'm going to sit in my trailer for 5 hours before they call me anyway. And I show up, and the director goes, oh, my God, Scott, you look perfect. And I'm like, I got to shave. He goes, no, you're the best man. You're supposed to look hungover and fucked up. No makeup, come to set right now. Okay, he goes, put that tuxedo on. I put the tuxedo on, he goes, untie the tie. And I'm just like all disheveled. And I came on, and from arrival to leaving, I was there for like 30 minutes. And that thing played on everything. World Series, like 5 times on every episode of Friends, the Super Bowl. I probably made $100,000 from there, and I was there for half an hour without one line, and all I'm doing in the commercial is have my arm around the room going, yeah, bro. The funniest, most ridiculous one was this one I did for Sprite, the soda. Mm-hmm. I had thrown my back out the night before, and I'm like, there's no way I'm not going to a national network SAG commercial, and I couldn't even move. Like, I was like practically crawling on my hands and knees to go to the bathroom. So I took a bunch of Vicodin to go to set, and I'm like, just like limping. And I'm like, I hope they don't have to have me do a lot of moving. And I show up, and the directors, it was a directing team, Canadian guys, and they're like, Scott, this guy, I'm just warning you, it's gonna be a rough day for you. And I go, oh no, what do we have to do? And he says, or you're going to be like naked and wrapped in saran wrap all day, and you're going to be on an operating table all day, and we're not going to be able to unwrap you at lunch, so you're basically going to have to be fed with straws and spoons by PAs. So I was just like, my back hurts so much. I'm like, I have to lay on an operating table all day? This is amazing. So I just sat there, and I just put some more painkillers in the plastic wrap, and every so often. And you couldn't see my eyes. I had a lemon over one eye and a lime over the other one, so you can't tell I'm totally loaded on painkillers. So they'd be like, Scott, you ready? And I'd be like, yeah, I'm awake. Okay, yeah, let's go again. And that one paid really well, too. And that one made Adweek or Advertising Age's top 10 creepiest commercials of all time.
What was creepy about it?
Well, number one, I'm lying on an operating table wrapped in plastic, and then they had a Chinese water torture device dripping Sprite on my forehead. And then they had this sexy Asian tennis player that was moving around in stop motion. Then they had 2 sumo wrestlers, one painted yellow, one painted green, like a lemon and a lime, running into each other in slow motion and smashing all their fat together. And then they were singing flesh-eating plants. It was like a really high-budget spot that made no sense.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
because they were torturing you with Sprite?
Yeah, it like didn't make any sense.
They should be saving you with Sprite, not torturing you with it.
Yeah, but I was just like, yeah, it's all good. Like it's the easiest gig in the world, so it's like never.
How long that whole commercial career lasted for you?
I still do them.
Yeah?
I mean, I haven't booked one in a while, but I'll still get, and it's a much better time for it now, because it used to be, oh, you have an audition at Fifth Street Studios in Santa Monica on Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock, and you'd be sitting in traffic, and now they're all Zoom. And obviously, I'm a photographer, so I set this stuff up and sit down, and I get to do them at home. So, I'll get like a handful of auditions a month.
But photography is by far your main.
That's
really
been my
thing.
mainstay since 2005.
And how did that come into your life?
I mean, I've always been a photographer just as an enthusiast. Like, I got my first darkroom at 9 years old.
Oh, wow.
I always had a camera in my hand. This friend of mine who was a really big photographer, he's like, you need to turn pro at this. And I'm like, dude, I'm finally making a living at something. For the first time in my life, I'm finally making good money.
You were doing
the web stuff.
the web stuff.
And the consulting. I'm like, I'm not giving this up to start a career in the arts. He's like, yes, you are. And I said, no, I'm not. And he owned a huge studio. And he and his brother said, all this grip, all this lighting, these trucks, it's all yours. Pretend you have the same last name as us.
Oh, wow.
I said, really? So I started testing. And digital was brand new. And I was really the first digital technician in the photography business. And since they were such a big force, I got all the camera companies to send me all the medium format digital cameras to try out and A/B them against film. Like, he shot a Mamiya RZ67, which was a, medium format film camera, and I would, do side-by-side shoots with all the digital cameras and decide which were the best ones were. And then I started assisting him where I was running cameras and computers, and I sat at his side, and he was doing, half digital, half film. And then he said to me, listen, I'm going to teach you everything that you don't know about photography. I'm going to teach you how to run a celebrity shoot, how to navigate the waters of publicists, everything about really technical lighting.
Oh, wow, like those things that they don't actually teach you in photography.
Yeah. And people management, which was incredibly valuable. But he said, you have to promise me one thing. One day when I feel like I've taught you all I can teach you, I'm going to fire you. And you have to promise me you're not going to go do digital teching for other people. You're going to go shoot. I think it was Christina Aguilera. And we wrapped, and he stopped, and he said, thank you, hair, thank you, makeup, thank you, wardrobe. Scott, you're fired. And I said, wait, what? And he goes, I told you this day was going to come. Time to fly, little birdie, out of the nest. And I sat on my couch for like 3 weeks going, I didn't do enough tests to have a book to really get a shoot. And then I got lucky. Someone that I'd met through him said, can you shoot beauty the way he did? And I said, yeah, I know all of his moves. I've been watching him do this a long time. So what's going on? And she says, yeah, I left there and I'm working for another brand called Too-Faced Cosmetics. She said, do you know them? I said, yeah, but they don't use photography. I've seen their stuff. They just use like stock illustration. And she goes, yeah, but they want to grow up a little bit as a brand and they want to do a photo shoot. So I said, what do I have to do? And she said, put together a creative brief for them and I'll introduce you to the owners of the company. So I figured it wasn't the most original idea in the world, but I figured the brand's called Too-Faced. Let's keep it simple. So I'm like, I'll do one blonde, one brunette, one good girl, one bad girl, like James Bond or Gilligan's Island, and just have a yin and yang of a girl next door and a scary girl. So I booked the blonde, who was this amazing South African girl. It was terrifying and beautiful, and I couldn't find a brunette. I did a whole day of casting for a brunette. Couldn't find her. I said, I need another day of casting. So I did another day, saw another 50 girls, but I couldn't find my brunette. And then I got this idea. I'd met this woman a couple weeks or months earlier on the street, and it was Katy Perry, and she didn't have a record deal, and she was kind of...
Wait, tell us the story how you met her, because that's a fun story as well.
All right, so me and my girlfriend at the time were out for dinner, and we decided to, go get a drink somewhere at a place with a notoriously tough door in town. And as we were walking up, I see this girl standing by herself, and she's got a green polka dotted dress on, and she's wearing white sunglasses at night and a fake fur coat and white high heels. And she, she's looks a little weird. And she's like, excuse me. And I said, yeah, and we're a little buzzed. So I'm just like, yeah, what's up? She goes, do you guys know how to get into this place? And I'd never taken a stranger in there before. And I don't know, something told me. I was just like, this girl's either really a total nut or fun. I go, yeah, she's with us, come on in. And I was like, all right, and she sat down with us, and I said, all right, what's your deal? And she's like, I'm a singer. I moved here from Santa Barbara. My parents are traveling ministers. And I'm like, okay. She's like this. I'm like, are you like a Christian artist? And she's like, no, I like write pop music. And she's like, do you want to copy my demo? You know, as all like hungry artists do. And I still have it. It's a CD with, you know, written in magic marker by her hand, and it had 6 or 8 songs on it. It's a picture of it in my TikTok. And I was just like, holy shit, she's really good and really pretty. And I just really believed in her. I kept listening to these songs over. And they were very primitive songs. They weren't 4 tracks, but they were very simple assemblies. And I started coming to her little coffee house shows and videotaping some of them. And I really believed I wasn't in music anymore, but I wanted to see her succeed, and I felt that she should. And I played her for everyone I knew in the music business, and everyone told me to go F myself, of course. So I was just like, you know what? I think she'd be good for this. She's good for this brand. So I called the CEO and I said, you know, I've been thinking, I think I found our brunette. And he goes, oh, that's interesting. What agency is she with? And I said, she's not a model. She's not tall enough to be a model. She's not thin enough to be a model. And he said, was she an actress? I said, no, singer. He goes, that's an interesting idea. What label is she with? I said, she doesn't have a record deal. He's like, Scott, are you a crazy person? You're really, on your first campaign, you're going to put your balls on the chopping block and bring me a nobody unsigned singer. I said, yes, I am. And he's just like, we'll take a meeting with her, but Scott, if we don't like her, we're just picking someone from the tape, and this is out of your hands. So I go, all right. So I call Katy, and I said, I'm picking you up tomorrow at 11 a.m. I didn't even tell her what it's for. And she goes, I can't. I go, what do you mean? I said, what are you doing? And she said, I'm having a songwriting session with Glenn Ballard, who did Alanis Morissette's record. Right. And she goes, I've been stalking him for months. I finally convinced him to work with me, and that's what I'm doing. I said, how much money do you have right now, Katy? And she said, none. I said, I have a photo shoot that pays $7,500 a day. And she goes, what do I have to do? I said, charm 2 gay guys in a room. And she goes, that's my thing. I go, I know. So I'm like, reschedule the writing session. So I go and I pick her up at her little apartment on Burton Way. And we drove down to Newport Beach. And, you know, Katy was Katy. She was a charming, charismatic star. We listened to her demos in the conference room, and then played all of her music on her MySpace page and showed all of her, you know, early primitive photographs and booked it. And that was just, I don't know, the smartest and dumbest thing I've ever done. So,
what, did the shoot go well?
The shoot went fabulous. And by the time the campaign came out, Katy got a proper record deal. I mean, she got signed to Columbia, and then
she was dropped twice, right? Which is kind of
I only knew of the one. So I knew she got. It's possible twice, but she got dropped.
I'm not sure.
Her person, who was championing her, if I remember it correctly, left Columbia. And
I remember that.
And she didn't have anyone. And
but
then
she was officially dropped from the label before, right? Universal or something.
Maybe. It's
been
so long ago, I can't even remember. But
because it's one of those rare examples when someone actually got
and they wouldn't give her masters, and they wouldn't let her go either. But then this woman who had just passed away a couple years ago, sweet lady named Angelica Cobb Baylor, took her with her to Capitol, you know, signed her from there, somehow worked it out, got her out of her deal, and Capitol is where she found all of her success. So Katy hit, Too Faced hit, she made the brand look good, they made her look good, everybody made me look good. And I never sought out to become a beauty photographer, it was just the first job I got, but from that hit, and I shot, I think, 4 years, 16 seasons for Too Faced. And then I got, you know, Urban Decay and Ulta and Sephora and Schwarzkopf and all these hair and makeup brands. And I became the beauty guy. I really always wanted to be the music guy. I always wanted to, like, take over what Annie Leibovitz and to a lesser degree Mark Seliger were doing and shooting really creative, artistic, well-orchestrated music shots. But you chop down one tree and everyone thinks you're a lumberjack.
You also shot Dita from Teese, right?
Many
for a very
times,
long time.
Yeah.
How did you meet her?
Before I officially turned pro as a photographer, I was still an enthusiast that I knew a lot about photography.
Wait, that's before the Too Faced campaign? Or?
Years before.
Okay.
This was 1999. I didn't turn pro as a photographer until 05, 06. But my buddy Greg, who I went to college with, was a TV director. And he said, you're pretty handy with a camera, aren't you? And I said, yeah. And he said, do you know how to shoot a pure white background? I said, I don't know the math, but it's just math. I could figure it out. And I called a photographer friend. And he goes, yeah, it's 2.5 stops from the tip of the nose to the back wall. And just make sure there's not too much wrap. And I'm like, all right, got it, you know? So I'm like, what's going on? and he says, I'm shooting this this Playboy home video series called Strip Search. I said, what is it? He goes, we travel around the country from sea to shining sea, casting strippers. He goes, and then I shoot a home video series, and then I need somebody to shoot the box covers, because it was back when there was like DVDs. And he goes, do you want to come and do this and shoot the strippers with me? And I go, yes. He goes, do you want to know what it pays? I said, no. He goes, why? I said, I'm not doing anything. Like, you're really asking me to travel all over America, taking pictures of naked women? I'm in. So, and he wanted me to hang out with, because like everyone on his crew were like Teamster guys, and he's like, it should be the greatest time of my life, and I'm not really having any fun. Like, he's like, my crew are duds. So the first city I shot in was Phoenix, Arizona. The first stripper I shot with was Dita von Teese. And Dita, you know, comes from the humble beginnings. She was a real strip club stripper. She worked at this place in Newport Beach called Captain Cream's. So, yeah, we shot in this strip club in Scottsdale, Arizona, or Phoenix. And just by kismet, by dumb luck, the next day I got on my Southwest flight to fly back from Phoenix. And not only was she on my flight, but we were seated next to each other. Wow. So we were like destined to become friends. And we were fast friends. And then, you know, she dated and then married Marilyn Manson, and her star began to rise, and she got a book deal with HarperCollins Press. And she said, I want you to shoot with me. And I said, yeah, but you could get, you know, all the A-listers. She's like, yeah, I know, but you and I have chemistry. She's like, I won't feel self-conscious. She's like, I know what I am and what I'm not. I don't want to get pushed around into doing things I don't want to do. And we built a trust between us, and we did many, many shoots over the years together. You know, I shot her fragrance campaigns and you know, a lot for her beauty book and lots of other things.
And one of the latest things which you did in sort of that creative kind of like photography, which is photography but also sort of videography, I'm referring to Confessionals, right? The new art project that you did, which by the way is amazing. The whole idea is amazing. And you shot Marla Maples and Tiffany Trump, right? Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the whole project and working with them specifically?
So how Confessional came to pass was, I take everything as a sign. Like I feel like if the universe is trying to tell me something, you should listen.
And you have a lot of signs.
Yeah. So this one was a very strong sign. So I was over at a friend of mine's house, and his daughter, who was like maybe 10 years old, she said, Uncle Scott, I saw your Instagram. And I'm like, uh-oh. I was like worried that she saw something inappropriately sexy.
Yeah.
And I said, what'd you think of it? And she goes, I'll tell you what I thought of it, a 10-year-old. And she goes, I will never be as pretty as the women you shoot. And it broke my heart that this kid saw that beauty standard. And I said, honey, nobody looks like that. It's all fake. It's all hair and makeup and lighting and retouching. It's not real. It's just made to sell soap, which is like an expression I use for selling anything, advertising. I was like, we make things unreasonably pretty so people spend their money and buy things. And she said, you're just trying to make me feel better. And I was like, oh my God, and it really like hurt me. So I sat around and I was like, how can I use my skills as a photographer and shoot authentic beauty, real beauty? And I didn't think I came up with this idea, and a lot of it was backed into, like, what can I do? I don't have a big space like this, so there was a limited amount of things I could do. I didn't have enough space to light a white background, so I'm like, I could do a fall off. I could do a single lighting source and a black background, and I'll do that. And I'm gonna shoot women I had a relationship with Red Digital Cinema, and they make these incredible 8K cameras. Mm-hmm. So I asked the CEO if I could borrow one to try this project with, and he said, yeah, take one. And so I started doing these 10-minute portraits of women just listening to the same piece of music and staring into the camera for 10 minutes. And I didn't think I'd find 10 women in LA that would take off their makeup and have no hair done and be their authentic self.
Were they naked or...
The nakedness happened, it was never my idea. I'm a portraitist, I'm a face guy. But then, you know, one woman was just like, you know, I think I'd feel even more exposed if we did a nude. Can we do another take nude? So I was like, yeah, but I don't want to show anything because then I'll never be able to post it on social media. So we can do an implied nude, you know, like so sit like this or your legs crossed or whatever. So I started telling everybody, I said, listen, I care about your face, but if you want to do one of these, you can do, you know, an implied nude also.
When someone's being like completely vulnerable with you, it's like an amazing moment because I don't think it happens very much. It's like leaving yourself completely exposed and raw.
So a shocking amount of women wanted to do it. And I wasn't trying to curate this for celebrity or followings. I just wanted the whole spectrum of human frailty. I wanted every different body type. I wanted every different race. Even in my show, I did not use the celebrity's last name. Like when Tiffany was in my show guide, it just said Tiffany. And Marla and Tess Holiday was just Tess. And, you know, there was a homeless person and a drug addict and an old person. And I just wanted to show authenticity and beauty and see if I could not destroy, but deconstruct, put on beauty from authentic beauty.
What did you discover doing this project? Like, were there any revelations, or you thought, oh my God?
Women felt shackled, imprisoned by these impossible beauty standards. Like, I never thought, you know, I had one woman say to me, she said, you know, all of these constructs, most of them were created by men. They said, you know, high heels, men, the brassiere, invented by men. Like, we don't, you know, we never signed up to wear all these masks, and you guys don't get to do any of it. And I don't care. My flaws, my wrinkles, all of it, let's show it. And I was like, this is so amazing. I never thought women would do this. By the end, I had to just stop. I shot 118 women over a 5-year period, and I just ran out of money. I couldn't afford any more hard drives, you know? So I'm like, all right, it's time to let go of this and do a show. And I knocked on doors, galleries, brands, you know, fairs. Everybody was just like, no, no, and nobody got it. And I was like, how does nobody get this?
I don't get how nobody gets it. It's such a great idea.
And I gotten over 1,000 rejections.
Wow.
And it's hard to keep going.
It is.
But I
is.
believed in it so much, I'm going to just keep going
That's
until
amazing.
someone says yes. And one day I'm at a party at my girlfriend's company's house, and she introduces me to this William Morris Endeavor agent. And she's like, tell him about Confessional. And I'm just like, here we go. I look forward to it.
1001.
I'm like, I look forward to my next rejection. I tell him, and he goes, show me some of it. And I showed some of it on my phone. He goes, these are amazing. He goes, do you want to be in Freeze? I go, they don't put people like me in Freeze. They put people like Damien Hirst and Jeff Koons in Freeze. They don't put nobodies like me, first-time artists. And he goes, I'm going to introduce you with the curator, the head of it, and we'll see how it goes. And I said, I look forward to my next rejection. She calls me and she's like, these are extraordinary. I'd like to offer you a VIP show at Freeze. She's like, do you have everything you need to make a show? Because we can't give you any money for it. We can't give you any space really for it either. So I go, yeah, I totally have it under control. I had none of it. None of it. So that was an expensive show to put on. You know, I needed a bunch of massive 4K panels, 4K projectors. I needed crew to put it all up and down. And I had no money, none. Like, I didn't have grocery money. And then again, dumb luck, I was at an event. I started talking to this guy at a party one night, and I'm like, what do you do? He said, I'm head of marketing for NEC. And I said, do you do the NEC displays? He's like, that's my division. And I said, I need a whole stage full of displays. And he goes, I don't know. And I said, please, Rich, I need it. So he goes, let me run it by my Japanese overlords. So he did. He's like, okay, they said that they'll loan you the displays for the whole week, but you have to pay shipping from Japan. I'm like, I can't pay shipping for Japan, you know? It was like thousands of pounds worth of stuff. And he goes, fine, I'll eat it and I'll expense it. And then the show was rolling around. It was like days away, and everybody flaked on me. Everybody I knew flaked on me. And I'm like, I need to put these all on stands. And just a Hail Mary, I just did a Facebook post, and I was like, does anybody have tools who can like help me put my show together? And Albert Mercia, Dita Von Teese's production manager, goes, where are you at? I said, I'm on the I Love Lucy stage at Red Cinema. He goes, me and the guys are coming over. I'm like, I don't have any money for you, Albie. And he goes, Scott, we got you. And he came over, and we all just broke our backs ripping out cardboard boxes and putting the show together, and by hook or crook managed to put that together. And Tiffany Trump, I never even heard of Tiffany Trump at that point. She found it somehow on Instagram and DM'd me.
Wow. And
asked if she could be in it. And I think I was driving, and I forgot to respond, and then she wrote me again, and I forgot to respond again. And I was like, oh, she's persistent. So I Googled her. I'm like, who is Tiffany Trump? And they're like, this is the youngest child of Donald Trump. I'm like, oh my God, she's a real Trump. And now at this point, Donald had just announced his candidacy. So I'm like, this might be good for some press. So I said, yeah, I write her back. I'm like, yeah, I'd love to have you in it. When are you going to be in it? When are you going to be in LA? And I said, never. When are you going to be, she says, when are you going to be in New York? I said, how about Wednesday? She says, wait. Can I ask my mom if it's okay? I said, yeah, of course, ask your mom if it's okay. So she called me back. She's like, yeah, I spoke to my mom. She says you guys are old friends and I should definitely do it. I'm like, old friends? I've never met Marla Maples in my entire life. I wonder why she thinks she knows me. But I didn't say anything. So then I'm sitting around for like 2 days. I'm like, why does Marla Maples think she knows me? And then I started tapping on Facebook one night. And sure enough, we're like Facebook friends. And it was maybe because the early days of Facebook, people were just randomly adding each other. So I think she had just seen my post for years, and to her, we were friends. So I expected Tiffany to arrive at the studio in New York by herself, but Marla came. We finished up Tiffany's shoot, and I was like, Marla, get in the chair, you do it too. And she's like, oh, this is Tiffy's day. I'm like, Tiffy's done. Sit in the chair, do it. And we became fast friends. And then, Marla was back in LA doing Dancing with the Stars, and she was just like, do you want to have lunch? And we stayed in touch, and yeah, they're cool.
What was the name of that studio where we shot the silence video?
Oh, that East West Studios, legendary place. And the reason I chose that, this was a music video that we did together, and the reason I chose that place wasn't because it's history, and it had a lot of history. I mean, Frank Sinatra's My Way was recorded there. Elvis Presley's Comeback Tour was recorded there. The Bodyguard soundtrack was, I mean, just as legendary as you could get. The reason I booked it as a studio, because it was the only 9'6" grand piano in town, because studios don't usually record with concert grands.
Yeah.
They use, babies or 6'4s or whatever, but I wanted that grand Bosendorfer look.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. I remember just walking in there the first time and just like, you can feel the creative history is right there.
Yeah, the engineer was very sensitive. Once I started opening up mic boxes,
right.
He was like, he's like, that's the Frank Sinatra U47. I'm like, I have a U47, dude. He's like, please put it down. Like, because these are like glass tube, old school 50s microphones.
What do you usually drink?
Mornings, I'll often have an oat mocha, cappuccino, not too much milk, and the rest of the day I will just have black
Perfect.
espresso.
Why don't you make a mocha? First of all, what is a mocha? Mocha is an espresso drink.
Sure.
That has a chocolate syrup.
Yep.
At Enigma, everything is made in-house. We roast our own beans, we make all of our own syrups, and we have our own kind of, what do you call them, recipes, but techniques of how we steam the milk to make sure, and how we pour them, to make sure that when the customer tastes it, it's one unique flavor. You don't taste the syrup, the chocolate, or the espresso, or the milk different times, different flavor. No, it has to be one flavor throughout the drink. To make any espresso drink, you need to make a good espresso. So the first thing we want to do, we want to grind the shot, and as much as a good espresso machine is important for a good espresso shot, a good grinder is not least important, because it's very important that it grinds it equally into the right size and allows the extraction to happen correctly.
Right. Now I see a numerical value on that. Does that refer to the fineness of the grind?
So this is actually the timer.
Oh.
The shots are timed. They're programmed by the barista in the morning. More or less the same, but it will get little tweaks.
A little variance.
Yeah, little tweaks in the morning. So a finer grind will make the shot be slower, because imagine the espresso is with pressure, right? It's trying to find its way through the beans.
Of course.
A coarser, now espresso is always fine, but even within the spectrum of fine shot, it's a very specific science. So what they will do usually in the morning, they call it a dial-in. They'll come in, they grind our yield, which usually it's 18.5 grams. They will try the shot. If it tastes good, and it at about 24 seconds from the beginning till the double shot extraction, then everything is good.
Smells so good.
Yeah, you want to smell it?
Yeah.
What I like about coffee is that they smell differently when in the form of whole bean. When they're grinded before you extract, it smells differently, and when after you extract, it smells differently. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to temp it. And a lot of people think that it's the velocity and the power and the force that you temp is what's important. It is important to an extent, but it's maybe 10% importance. What really matters, and the most important thing about temping, is that when you temp it is in a straight line, that it doesn't create a non-equal distribution of water when it's extracting it, right?
Yeah.
So what we're gonna do, we're gonna hold the hand straight, 90 degrees, push one time, and you see,
Right.
straight.
Yep.
So we're going to, while it's extracting, we're gonna put the chocolate syrup, the house-made Enigma chocolate syrup, into the cup. Now, before I steam, I usually like to make sure that the espresso is blended well.
And you just do that by hand. You don't use a stick or a spoon or
Yeah,
anything.
correct, because with hot drinks, the milk is going to be hot, and if you pour it right, it's already going to mix it all.
Got you.
Steam it, make sure it comes out in wet paint texture, and we're going to try to make that oat milk look like it has no visible bubbles. Our baristas are trained to know the temperature by hand, and it's precise.
Right.
So you see, and we're gonna try to make sure that the drink is all like one unit.
That's a beaut.
Enjoy it.
Let's give it a go.
What's the first celebrity you ever met?
Joan Rivers, which is really funny, when I was like 11 years old.
How did that happen?
So I lived in this little suburb called Wilmette, Illinois. We had this local newspaper called the Wilmette Life, and it said that Joan Rivers directed a movie and she's going to be doing an appearance and signing autographs at our local movie theater. So my friend Eli said, do you want to go meet Joan Rivers? And we loved her from because she was like a guest host on The Tonight Show. She was a huge star.
Yeah.
We never met any celebrities in our little Illinois suburb. So we got on our Schwinn varsities and we rode to this movie theater, and she signed our programs. And then I ended up working with Joan Rivers on her reality show.
Yeah.
Joan and Melissa.
Yeah.
And I didn't tell her right away, but well into the day, I said, you're the first famous person I ever met. And she was like, get the fuck out of here. Where? And I said, you did Rabbit Test. She's like, my movie. I said, yeah, I rode my bicycle. And she goes, fuck you. And I said, why fuck me? She goes, why are you making me feel old? I'm like, you are older than me, Joan. And she goes, you were really there. I said, I was there. And she goes, what was I wearing? I said, this beautiful tan camel hair coat and a scarf. And you had big, awesome hairspray hair. She goes, I remember that coat. You were there.
Who would you say is the most memorable celebrity that you've worked or met or?
Boring answer, but probably her. But I celebrities.
It's hard to top her.
I know it's the oldest cliche ever, but they're just people.
Yeah.
Some are nicer than others, but I find when people say celebrities are difficult, I've found that to rarely be the case. I find the celebrities generally one-on-one are pretty cool. I find the handlers to often be difficult. Sometimes the publicists just want to play everything safe. So I'll be like, let's do this. And they're like, no, let's just do a straight portrait on a gray seamless background. And I'm like, if you want a yearbook portrait, I'll give you that too. And then I'll be like to the celebrity, I'm like, all right, we did that. I have an idea. Let's try this. And if you don't like it, we'll kill it. But let's just play. Let's make some art together.
I love that you're like that, because a lot of people that be scared.
But I find we all have to get along in this world. So sometimes if I'll do an advertising shoot, I won't always agree with the client or the agency, but I'll give them what they want. And I'll be like, I have this idea. We have some time left. Can I try this one thing? And 8 times out of 10, my wacky idea is the one they end up picking. And sometimes they don't know. And it's it's not that I'm always right, but we're all creatives. We're all artists here. So let's play and see what happens.
When I was watching your TikToks, one TikTok that shocked me was the story how you literally single-handedly made Being John Malkovich movie happen. Because objectively speaking, this movie would not have been made if not for you. Can you tell us the story?
Yeah, so that was when I was an IT guy and doing websites, and I had a bunch of clients and with small businesses all over town, and some many it's a one business town. So I was at a production company, and these guys have been a client of mine for 2-3 years, and we were friends too. So we were finishing up for the day, and I wanted to read something, but I didn't feel like driving to Borders on La Cienega to go to buy a book. And I said, you guys got anything for me to read? And they're like, what do you want? You want a book? You want a screenplay? You want a TV show? I'm like, I don't care. Just give me something like interesting and funny. And the development guy says, I got one for you. It has no chance whatsoever of being made, but it's totally perfect for your weird brain. I said, what's it called? And he said, Being John Malkovich. And I was like, oh, my hometown Chicago guy, I love Malkovich. Give it to me. So I go home and I read this script. It's so weird and it's so amazing. And then this agent I knew, who was also from my hometown, she calls me and she's like a really aggressive, gruff, mouthy agent. And she's like, Nathan, what are you doing tonight? And I said, nothing, same as every night. And she goes, Johnny Depp just dropped by my office and dropped off a box of Cuban cigars. Do you want to come over and smoke them later? I go, fuck yeah. So I drive up to her house and we're smoking Cubans and drinking whiskey and watching like the E! Channel. And it occurs to me, and I said, you're John Malkovich's agent, aren't you? And she goes, yeah. And I said, do you know this script called Being John Malkovich? She goes, yeah, stupidest idea I've ever heard. I passed on it like 3 years ago. And so I go, okay. And she's one of those people who like just sets off easily and yells a lot. So I go, oh. So a few minutes go by, and she goes, why'd you ask me about that script? And I said, I read it today. She goes, you fix computers for a living. What are you doing reading dead screenplays for? And I'm like, I needed something to read, and I didn't feel like going to a bookstore. So she goes, how was it? I go, it's amazing. She goes, should I send it to John? I said, yeah, if you don't send it to John, you're the world's worst agent. And she goes, if he hates this and fires me, I will send men to your home in the middle of the night to kill you. And I said, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And then she calls and wakes up her assistant. It's like 11 o'clock at night. It's clearly no emergency because the script is years old. She goes, wake up. You need to go to the office, go get the latest draft of Being John Malkovich and drive it to LAX and put it in the pouch to John. And I'm like, where does Malkovich live? And she goes, he lives a quiet life in Marseille, France. So I go, okay. So I just sort of forget about it. And then 2 days later, she calls me and she's like, you're not going to believe this. Malkovich read the script and he loves it and he's committed to it. And I can never get him to commit to anything. And he said, it sounds like a small movie. Don't beat them up about the money. I'll do it for scale if I have to. So she's like, isn't this incredible? He's going to do it? I said, yeah. Can I get like an associate producer or some kind of credit on it? And she just hangs the phone up on me. So I'm like, I know I'm already screwed and there's nothing I can do about it. It's just Hollywood 101. So I decided to screw with her a little bit, so I call her back immediately. And she goes, what? And I said, how about a muffin basket? And she just hangs up on me again. And as we all know, Being John Malkovich went on to get nominated for Best Screenplay in the Golden Globes and the Academy Awards, and it won the BAFTA Award for Best Screenplay.
Aww.
And that was Charlie Kaufman. It was the first movie he ever got made. So Charlie, you're welcome.
It's incredible. Do you have a little regret that you that you did not get a producer on that?
I mean, I don't know if regret's the right word, but like I would never do that to somebody. I'd be like, okay, if I don't have to pay him any money, I'll get him a credit, you know. But like that's not how this town works, you know. But I would just, I bring everybody with me, you know.
Yeah. How does this town work?
Well, it's not the Midwest where I came from. It's definitely more transactional. Like if somebody ever says, don't you trust me? Don't trust them. It's unfortunate because I come from a world where if two people shake hands and say my word is my bond, because my word is my bond, even if I get myself into a situation where I realize I'm in over my head and this is going to cost me more than I'm going to make, I said I would do it, I'm going to do it, and I'll be smarter next time. Here, you better get a contract. And cover your bases. And
even with a contract, a lot of times.
Yeah, a lot of times you can have a signed contract, but unless you can afford a long litigation in court, you're still screwed. So, I don't know, there's an old rule, the 90-10 rule. 10% of your customers are going to cause 90% of your headaches. Learn to choose wisely. So
any industry.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember where I heard it, but someone once told me at a young age, you can't make a good deal with a bad person. So no matter how smart a business idea sounds, if your gut doesn't trust this person, no promise of
100%.
Success is going to fix it.
I personally rate as the funniest is how you met Dalai Lama. How did you meet
His Holiness?
Yes.
I shot this model for a hair campaign. We became fast friends. Cool girl. And she, she was no sugar. She was, like a good girl, but ran with a high-flying crowd because she was not just pretty, but she was also really fun. And just everyone liked her. And she was a, very social person. And she just knew everybody. So one night she calls me and she's clearly on a private jet. You know, it's like this big, creamy, cushy leather seat, and she's got a champagne flute, and she's kind of giggling. I could tell she's visibly buzzed, and I was like, "Where are you going, dude?" And she's kind of moving around in her seat with her iPad, and she's got her wired earbuds in. And I said, that is the biggest private jet I've ever seen in my life. What is it? And she's like drunk, and she's like, do you want me to find out? And I go, yeah. So she takes her iPad and she goes to the flight deck, and she's like, hey, you guys, this is my friend Scott. He really likes airplanes. He wants to know what kind of plane this is. And the captain goes, hey, Scott, this is a Boeing 757-200. I go, nice whip. And he goes, it's not mine. So I go, whose plane is this? And she's like, I'm not going to tell you. She's like, I'll let you know if it works out, but it's a new guy I'm seeing. So she plops down in the seat, and we're chatting and chatting and chatting. And then in the background over her shoulder, I see saffron robes, that unmistakable look. And I go, dude, is that the Dalai Lama behind you? She said, oh my God, yeah, do you know him? I go, no, I don't know him. She goes, he's really nice. I go, he's the 14th reincarnation of Buddha. I would imagine the very least he would be as nice. And she goes, what? And I go, never mind, nothing. And so I'm just like, this is so crazy. And then she shifts in her seat again, and I go, is that Bill Clinton talking to the Dalai Lama? And she goes, yeah, do you know him? I go, no, I don't know him either. And she goes, do you want to meet them? And I go, yeah. And then she just pops up, and as she's walking toward them, it occurs to me that I'm in bed, shirtless, on an Ambient. And I'm like, here we go. So she gets down on one knee with the iPad. She's like, you guys, this is my friend Scott. He wanted to meet you guys. And the Dalai Lama goes, hello. And Bill Clinton goes, how you doing, bud? And I go, and I didn't know what to say. I'm just like in shock. And I'm just like, Your Holiness, Mr. President. And then she goes back to her seat. And I go, where are you going with Bill Clinton and the Dalai Lama? And she goes, Monaco. And I go, what are you doing in Monaco with Bill Clinton and the Dalai Lama? And she goes, partying, duh.
Dalai Lama partying.
Yeah, and obviously they were probably
of
there
course.
for some global something or other. And this guy she was dating was giving him a lift on the plane.
Tell me, what character traits you hate most in people?
Insincerity. Just give it to me straight. Don't BS me. Don't.
Wrong industry, wrong town.
Yeah, I know. But like, you may not always like what I have to say, but you're gonna hear the truth. Like, if you play me your demo and I don't like it, I'm gonna be like, I don't really like it. And I expect the same in return.
Right.
Like, I don't think, you should sacrifice, someone's feelings as an excuse for telling the truth, but like, just give it to me straight. You like it, you don't like it, it's a buy, it's a pass.
Is there a common denominator between successful people, famous people, that you can say that's why they're successful? There's something that stands out.
A big difference between an actor and a movie star. And it's not about looks or beauty. Some people are just more watchable than others. Some people are great actors, but they're not movie stars. Tom Cruise, no matter what you say about him, that guy's a movie star.
Yep.
Will Smith, no matter what you got to say about him, even if it's not a movie that I think is even any good, I can't stop looking at Will Smith. Malkovich, I love his voice and the cadence of his voice. I could listen to
Those
that guy read
eyes,
from the telephone book.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it is hard work meets preparation. Like even when I've directed a rinky-dink commercial, but that commercial is 60 seconds of talking, I put in the breakdown, I'm like, all actors must be off book, which means you must know the dialogue cold. And it's shocking to me. I'd see 100 people and 2 would know it. And I'd put it out there. So I think it's like most people are not willing to do the work. And most successful actors I know, they have, one guy I know said that he does it out loud on tape at home 200 times before he goes into an audition. He goes, I have to know it's so cool, so cold, so second nature, that if they try to trip me up or try to change the mood of it, I'm never gonna forget the words. And all I have to do is just make an adjustment in my mood.
Right. And he can play with it, kind of like...
Yeah. A kid I grew up with, Todd Zuckerman, who's a kind of a famous drummer, he's in the band Styx. I said, how did you get that gig? He goes, because I didn't just learn the 5 songs they asked us to do. He goes, I learned every song from every record they ever did. And I wrote parts for them, and I broke my back to get this job. And after I played the songs they asked for, I said, why don't we try Renegade? Why don't we try this song? Why don't we try that song? And he just, he was so over-prepared, he couldn't not get the job. So, the harder you work, the luckier you get.
In terms of the star quality, you're saying like some sort of magnetism, right? Just some sort of innate something
Some
that
people are
has
just
to
more
be.
watchable than others.
I like how you, like the term that you coined, watchable, because a lot of people use like different ways of describing it, but this is so true. Because you look like that's, if people are watching and this is bringing money, you gotta have those actors, Tom Cruise and...
Tom Cruise is a prime example. Like, I've never met him, but I remember one time I was in a restaurant and all of a sudden I felt the energy of the room change and everything kind of froze. And I was like, what just happened? And I look up and not everyone was even looking at him. Just Tom Cruise walked in and just, a nuclear bomb went off.
You know what's funny? I had exact same experience, and I'm not very starstruck. And we live in LA, we see a lot of celebrities, whatever. We used to have escape rooms. The most down-to-earth actor that I've ever met was Will Ferrell.
That makes me happy to hear.
I was happy because the way he was really like, as we were talking, just a regular guy. He was just a regular guy. You could not see the star anywhere on that man. And he was so gracious. And you can tell he understands that he's serving his audience. But one actor that I can say who showed up and I was like, oh my God, I'm starstruck, I'm never starstruck, was Leonardo DiCaprio. That guy, exactly as you're describing, the energy just entered.
Yeah.
And you couldn't tell what has changed, but everything changed. Like, he was just, that aura was just there.
He's an interesting guy. I never knew him well, but a friend of mine dated him for a few years, and I was around him a few times. And I found him to be a really, because I'd see him at like the clubs, and I'd be like, is this guy cool? I don't know. You try. But then, I met the guy, and he's just a really charming, affable, thoughtful guy.
Yeah.
And obviously a tremendous actor. I mean, the first time I ever saw him was like a little kid standing toe to toe with Robert De Niro and just bringing it. And I was just like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
But like, what an actor.
The most weird, crazy gift that you once got for your birthday.
Oh, a bomb. So this begins at the Royal and Ancient Golf Links at St. Andrews, Scotland. The first golf course, the oldest golf course in the world, it opened for play in 1401.
Listening to you, by the way, I'm sorry for interrupting. It feels like if you want to be successful in life, you have to play golf. You meet all the people there.
Maybe. I haven't played in a while. I should get back into it. So I was there on a golf trip with Jason Biggs, that actor from American Pie, and he and I were all friends, and we were both obsessed with golf at the same time. And we both had to be in Europe at the same time. So I was in London doing a photo shoot, and he was like doing a presenting gig at like the British Soap Opera Awards, I think. And he had a bachelor party in Spain the next week. So he's like, I'm not flying back to LA to go back to Barcelona. So I'm like, let's do a golf trip in Scotland. So we did 13 rounds of golf in 15 days. Anyway, and we ended our golf trip. We wanted to end with the creme de la creme, which was the Old Course. And you can't just get on the Old Course. It's a lottery. You have to apply, and your odds of getting on, it's not that it's expensive, it's democratic, but there's not enough tee times for the amount of people that want to play it. And we got so lucky. Not only did our names get drawn, but we got like the best possible tee time. It was like 11 a.m. on an 80-degree windless day. And it's never windless or 80 in Scotland anywhere.
That's true, I lived there.
Yeah, oh, you did?
I did.
So we get paired up with these two guys. One guy's a student at the University of St. Andrews, where Prince William went. And the other guy, I'm like, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I'm a fighter pilot in the RAF. I'm like, you're a Royal Air Force fighter pilot? I'm like, do you fly that Typhoon Eurofighter? He goes, yeah. I go, that's one of the coolest planes in the world. Tell me stories. He goes, and I'm a local member. And there's a lot of golf clubs around St. Andrews. And I go, member of what? And he goes, that place. And the Royal and Ancient Golf Club is like known to be the one of the most difficult clubs to get into in the world. Like, they do not let British royals in there. And their symbol is like what you would imagine like a Freemason or an Illuminati. It's like a guy with a hood carrying a cross, like a beaming cross. And so we went in there, and I'm like, I cannot believe we're in this place. And there's like old men in tweeds. Anyway, we became friends with this fighter pilot, and we stayed in touch afterwards. So one day, I get a Facebook message from him, and he says, He goes, mate, happy birthday. I was like, thanks, dude. This is very thoughtful. He goes, I got you a gift. I go, you didn't have to get me anything. What'd you get me? And he says, and he sends me this picture. And it's a GBU 12 500-pound laser-guided smart bomb that he wrote with a Sharpie, from Hollywood with love, SMN, just my initials. I go, thanks for not putting my whole name on that bomb. Are you sure that bomb went off? He goes, yeah, they have cameras in the nose. I saw it go off. I go, dude, who'd you drop that bomb on? He goes, I can't tell you, mate. That's classified. I said, what can you tell me? He goes, all I can tell you this is, mate, I delivered the package to some very, very bad people doing very, very bad things. So, unique gift, right?
Mic drop.
Buy me a coffee?
Absolutely.
All right.
If there is a recipe for success, what do you consider a successful person, and do you consider yourself successful, and what's the definition of that?
It's tricky because success and satisfaction are very different things. You know, I think if you're truly satisfied, you're probably not done. Like, I once asked a very famous photographer at their show, I said, do you ever look at your photos now and say, I wished I'd done something different? Because every time I finish shoot, I'm just like, I wish I would have told them to bring their pinky in or not have the toe going out of frame. And she said, every single shoot I do, I'd wish something would be a little bit different. And I said, okay, so it's not just me. She goes, no, if you think something's perfect, you're probably not very good at it, you know, because it's like a musical instrument. You're never done. Your husband is never going to stop, you know, he's never going to be a perfect guitar player, just as I will never be perfect. No one, humans aren't perfect at anything. We're not machines. I think having a seeking spirit, having a curiosity and keep striving, I think that's success. I think rarely is it a number, you know, like people I know that go from like middle class to very wealthy are always disappointed. It's never what you think it is. Do I consider myself successful? I've always considered myself the guy that's this close.
Are you happy? Do you consider yourself happy?
My grandmother used to say, happy? Who's happy? So any given day, I would not consider myself a naturally happy person. No, it takes work.
Scott, thank you so much.
Thank you
for your
Katya.
time.
I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, crew.
It's funny because he's one of the easiest people to talk to. And he was saying in the interview that he doesn't have any judgment. And some people say they don't have judgment, but they have. But this guy for sure. Like, you know, so easy, no judgment, like, you know, anything goes, everybody's cool. And he attracts the craziest of stories. I mean, I wish we didn't have time to cover everything that I would want to cover, but people can watch his TikToks because they're amazing.
We've known him for like 10 years, and he's always been the same, very humble, but then out of nowhere, like, he would tell you all these stories about how he coincidentally met Katy Perry before she was Katy Perry, and how he ended up sitting across the Queen of Netherlands. And it's all these stories, and it's just incredible. Absolutely, there's something inside of him that attracts it without wanting really on the egoic level, but it just, in a humble way, he just attracts it because of his fluid personality.
He's a storyteller, 100%. And as he said, and I think that's honestly one of the best advice. I don't know if he even realizes that that's just a life advice that he has to give people. Don't care. Like, really don't care. Just let things happen, because the most incredible things happen to him because he doesn't want them to happen.
Yeah.
They just happen.
Yeah. He doesn't want them to happen for a personal gain. He just some sort of a constant, he's a creative person, and then that is also part of the creativity, even the way he tells stories, and that's why they're so popular on TikTok, because you want to be in there, you want to be involved in that story. Like, he tells you that story as if you're there, so.
It's also, he's very perceptive, and he just sees those things. I mean, he sees life so honestly. It's very refreshing and very fun. I mean, I would love to have him back.
I must be honest, I was standing there behind the scenes, and you know, we have to keep quiet here, right? Because of all the sounds, but I was barely holding myself. There's some parts that was so funny. Like, he's just like a funny guy in a very cool way.
I also told him behind the scenes that, you know, some of those stories, of course, I've heard before and saw on TikTok, and they can literally just have them on repeat. I can watch and like re-listen and
That's
rewatch.
That's actually what I do at night. Watch Scott Nathan's TikToks on repeat. So all these cool things happen to him, but he doesn't want them on the egoic level. He just it's a subconscious ongoing creativity process that goes, and that's how he attracts all of it without really wanting, as you say.
Yeah, he even said that there are some things that he wants, and I completely relate to that. That some things that he wants, they just don't come because he wants them too much. And then things that he's just, yeah, whatever.
For example, how many people in this town would want to be producers or associate producers or even just something in a big movie like being John Malkovich? But for him, it's like, and it has always been like that. I've known him, you know, he just likes to connect dots because he wants the creative process to continue. So he sees a great script and spontaneously he smokes a cigar with the agent. And then it just comes to him. So, you know, in a way, like he thought of himself last. He just wanted a great project to come together. And unfortunately, this town has people who take advantage of it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. No, but I really hope, like, I think storytelling is like so his thing.
Yeah,
I really
yeah.
hope. I also know, I didn't get a chance to ask, but I also know he has a book coming out. So I think that would be cool for him. And, you know,
I think
maybe,
it's called,
I mean, honestly, there should be like a movie or a TV show. So, you know, he has the book,
BadDecisionsBook.com. Did you get it? Go there right now.
Well, there will be a continuation. We'll see you guys next time for the new episode.
Peace.